A founder called me last quarter. He was 3 months into a CRO he'd hired with full board endorsement. He said, Dave, the board loved this guy. 5-person panel, unanimous yes. 8 years at a top SaaS company, managed a team of 200, gave the most polished interview we'd ever seen. And 90 days in, my best 2 reps just quit. The pipeline is shrinking. The forecast meetings have turned into homework reviews. And I have a feeling in my gut that we're about to lose another quarter. I asked him one question. When your board interviewed him, what did they evaluate? He paused. Then he said, what do you mean? I said, when your board sat across from this candidate, what were they actually testing? Because I've been in hundreds of board interviews, and I'll tell you what most boards evaluate. They evaluate the resume. They evaluate the polish. They evaluate whether the person reminds them of someone who's worked before. What they almost never evaluate is whether your hiring thesis is right in the first place. That's the difference between a board that pressure tests the profile and a board that rubber stamps the resume. And it's the difference between a company that scales and a company that cycles through executives every 18 months. Here's what I mean. The hiring thesis was, we need someone who's run a sales org at scale, because we're going to be at scale soon. That sounds reasonable. Most boards would nod along, except the company was 40 people. The pipeline was full of mid-market deals being closed by founder-led conviction. The team needed a player coach who would get on calls and help close deals while building the function around them. The candidate they hired had managed 200 reps at a public company. He'd been 3 layers removed from the actual selling for 5 years. The thesis was wrong. The candidate matched the thesis perfectly, which is why he failed perfectly. This is the pattern I see at growth stage companies more than any other. The board doesn't get the hire wrong. The board gets the question wrong. And when the question is wrong, the candidate selection is doomed before the first interview. Here's what a great board does differently. Before they ever meet a candidate, they pressure test the hiring thesis. They ask the founder 5 questions, and those questions are the difference between a board that protects the company and a board that rubber stamps a resume. Question 1. What is the actual problem this hire is solving? Not the title, not the function, the specific problem. Pipeline conversion is broken. Engineering velocity has slowed. Customer churn is climbing. The hire only matters in relation to the problem. Question 2. What does the person who has solved this exact problem look like? Not 10 years of experience in B2B SaaS. Specifically, someone who has built a sales org from 5 reps to 30 in 18 months at a Series B company in your category. That's a profile. The first version is a job posting. Question 3. What stage of company has this person operated in? A Series B environment is fundamentally different from a public company environment. Different operating system, different cadence, different decision rights. Most failed hires I've seen at Series B and C are people who succeeded at scale but cannot operate inside the constraints of growth stage. Question 4. What would this person have failed to learn at their last company? This is the hardest question because every company teaches you specific patterns, and those patterns are either an asset or a liability depending on where you're going. Someone from Salesforce learned how to sell into a mature category with massive brand recognition. Someone from a Series B startup learned how to invent demand from cold outreach. Both are valuable. Neither is universal. Question 5. If we hire this profile and it works, what does the company look like in 18 months? If we hire this profile and it fails, what's the cost? The board should have a clear answer to both. If they don't, the hire is being made on hope, not strategy. 5 questions asked before the first candidate is interviewed. I've watched boards spend 45 minutes on the financial review and 5 minutes on the executive who's about to be hired to drive those financials. That ratio is upside down. Here's what happened to that founder I mentioned. We had the hard conversation. He let the CRO go after 6 months, cost the company 18 months of momentum and 3 good reps who left because they couldn't get the support they needed. Then we ran the search again. But this time, the board pressure tested the thesis first. The new thesis, we need a player coach who has built a sales org from 5 reps to 30 at a Series B company in our category, who is comfortable getting on customer calls and who has not yet managed a team larger than 50. The candidate pool was different. The interview questions were different. The reference calls were different. The hire was different. 8 months in, he closed 3 deals himself in his first month. built the playbook from inside the work, hired 4 reps who he had personally interviewed and trained. Pipeline doubled. The 2 reps who had left came back, unprompted, asking if there was a seat. Same company, same product, same market, different hire. Because the board got the question right. Now, if you're an investor watching this, here's the uncomfortable truth. The board interview is where the most expensive mistakes in venture capital get made. Not in the term sheet, not in the valuation, in the unanimous yes from a 5-person panel that never tested whether the hiring thesis was right in the first place. I've sat in dozens of those rooms. The board nods, the CEO is relieved, the candidate is excited. Everyone exhales. And 18 months later, the company has lost a year of momentum. 2 A players have left, and the founder is having the conversation with me about why he's about to make the same mistake again. The companies that scale have boards that interrogate the thesis. The companies that cycle through executives every 18 months have boards that rubber stamp the resume. If you're a founder, the next time your board endorses a candidate, ask them the 5 questions, watch what happens. The conversation will go from 45 minutes of polish to 5 minutes of polish and 40 minutes of strategy. That's the conversation that protects your company. If you're an investor, the next time you sit on a hiring panel, slow down. The candidate is the easy part. The thesis is the hard part. And the thesis is what matters. Boards evaluate candidates. They should evaluate the hiring thesis. The difference between those 2 things is the difference between a company that scales and a company that cycles through executives every 18 months. Subscribe for more on how the best boards build the best companies. And if you've watched a hire fail because this thesis was wrong, drop a comment. I read all of them.